So, so you told you have worked with Terraform, right?
Yes.
So can you write an Terraform code for an S3 bucket and attach a policy? So you can tell how can do it just
So, and do you want encryption key with KMS and roles as well?
yes.
Okay. Let me bring up my screen. Share. Share. Okay. I was working on one of the programs, but let me start over here. Okay, so to start with, I would have to create a provider and then a provider of AWS category.
Okay.
In that, I would have
You
my.
can tell me like no need to. You can tell me like overall how it proceed. These things.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to write.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay. You can tell me. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just stop presenting. 1 second. Okay, so I would need a provider. I would need a resource of basically AWS S3 bucket resource. Then I would give a name. I could have my ACLs. ACL would be private because we want to go with the role policy. And then I would have, and if in case you ask me to add some more tags, then I would go with some tags, maybe environment production name, what is this S3 bucket for required for. So if I give in the name of tag, only problem with AWS is any resource that you're provisioning, only tag name is treated as the name.
Okay.
So we will give that. Then for coming to the policy, I would need, if this is a read-only load, then I would go for S3 get object or objects. I'm just forgetting object or objects, but I think that is a specific role that you would need to be attached the action, and then the resource ARN. I think that would be pretty much
Yeah.
the
Got it.
structure of my Terraform file.
Okay. So you have you connected to EC2 using PM file, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you lose a PM file, then how will
Yes.
connect to EC2? Hello?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Can you
Sorry.
please tell us? Sorry, can you please tell again?
Okay, first one, if you have a SSM connected, SSM is session manager. Sorry, not session manager. Shit. AWS SSM is a service. I'm just forgetting the full name. It is used for managing your EC2s, or if you even have services on-prem or even not on AWS, then you also could manage that. Either if you have that set up, you could easily go back, or you have something like some open source solutions like Bastion Host installed, you could do that. If in case nothing is there, then your last option that is available is you would disconnect the EBS, which is
Okay.
the root volume wherein your OS is installed. Create a separate separate EC2 with a new EBS and boot that in. Then connect this old EBS for which you lost the password and connect that. Then you'll be able to access the files, and then you could easily reset your password.
So whether it will harm for any like storage, you'll be like disconnecting the ABS and again connecting. Is there any?
No,
Okay.
we do that all the time. Why? Because so basically what happens is sometimes our nodes, if in case of OS patching, so I do a lot of OS patching, we do that all the time.
Okay.
And for the data migrations as well. So sometimes once there was a requirement of me migrating from Ubuntu. Earlier, the company was on Ubuntu and then moving to RHEL. So it was not a complete root volume migration, just the EBS migration. So connecting, disconnecting, and then moving to a new EC2 instance migration, it should not be a problem. As long as if it is not encrypted, then it is super easy. If it is encrypted, then just make sure your KMS key is in place.
Okay, got it. So can you tell me difference between classic ELB and application ELB?
Classic ELB and application ELB. No, I'm not very familiar with that. I've not used that before.
Okay, no worry. Okay, so
If I remember, there was one for network and one for the core concept of load balancing. The network load balancer just routes your HTTP or HTTPS traffic, or the basically more or less TCP traffic to any specific target group that you want to. That's how the concept of your load balancers is working inside in AWS.
okay.
But yes, specifically if you ask me application versus classic, I'm not able to recall at the moment, sir.
Okay, got it. No. Okay. So is it possible to run any VM in AWS without creating an EC2 instance?
Is it possible to run a VM without creating an EC2 instance?
Yeah.
Not that I've come across. Ideally, it should not be possible because services like Lightsail and all of these Lightsail, or even if you go with AWS Glue or DMS, all of them in the background are starting a EC2 instance. So I don't think it will be possible unless you're going with a serverless kind of technology, which would run in a ghost host,
Okay.
wherein basically your payloads would, your program ideally would execute on a remote machine, which you would not definitely have access for. But yes, if you want a server where you should be able to log in, it has to be an EC2 machine.
Okay.
In AWS at least.
Okay, got it. So you have used Docker, right?
Yes, sir.
Where do you generally store these Docker images?
I'm preferring a private GitLab. So I also administer a GitLab self-hosted environment.
Okay.
So I have experience working with that. If in case a company does not want a private GitLab or a private registry, private Git solution, then I would go with either Docker Hub Enterprise or either ECR, Elastic Container Registry, provided by AWS. Then you have GCHR from Google's side. You could also go for Quay, which is another solution that is available. You could run Quay on your own infrastructure and use that as a registry. Or also you could also ship your images because they're exportable ideally using tar as well. So if in case you for some XYZ reason company does not want to use a container registry, you could actually ship your images using tar.
Okay. Okay. You have which scripting language you mostly use? Like shell scripting or Python, or what do you use?
I am using mostly Node.js or Python.
Okay.
Yes, for any kind of script that we are running.
Okay. How do you use AWS CloudWatch for logging, monitoring?
AWS, sorry,
Cloud.
once again, you
AWS
broke through.
Cloud, Amazon CloudWatch.
Yes.
So how can you use Amazon CloudWatch for logging and alerting?
So you are looking in the scope of VPC, EC2, or what kind of log do you want to store?
Let's consider EC2.
Okay. So you could easily connect a logging system. That is one way. You could read the file. If you two ways. One, either programmatically, you could directly, so whatever logging solution you would be using, right? Maybe Winston you are using, if in case this is a Node.js kind of solution, or maybe Log4j. So you could directly ingest from there. One approach. Second, you could read a file. You could point your CloudWatch to a specific, read a file continuously. So third option, I think these are the only two options in case of a program. I am generally using CloudWatch not for log storing. I'm using for VPC flows. So any kind of, if I want to in-depth do a packet analysis, right? Then I'm using CloudWatch for storing that data.
Okay, I got it. So how can you convert an HTTP request into HTTPS using AWS services?
Okay, so you could do that with a network load balancer. That is one way of doing it. Second, you could translate it in your web server level, and then maybe in the background, if you're using some sort of Kubernetes layer, then at ingress level, you could translate that. So, or your application web server itself, maybe if you're using something like, let's say, Node.js, or let's say Java. So you could easily use a JKS and then start your jar application itself with a SSL. So it depends at what layer do you want to terminate your SSL. You could also do that at your, I think I said load balancer, right? Yeah, at load balancer type, you could do that. Yes, I think this is what I can think of as of right now. These are the three ways of, so edge termination, or you could do a network termination, or you can do a pass-through termination. These are the only three procedures is what that as of now I'm aware of.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Okay, so you have worked on CI/CD pipeline. Can you describe like how you'll handle like sensitive data like API key and token in CI pipeline without risking the exposure?
Okay. So which CI/CD tool are you using as of today?
Show Jenkins.
Jenkins. Okay. So you would generally use Jenkins Secret. You have a credentials manager available. That is option one to use there. If you don't want to do that, then what also you can do is use of environment variables. in your execution node, right, you would have worker nodes of Jenkins registered. You could set those environment variables, and if your agent is able to read those environment variables, that is another way. If in case you don't want to expose your secrets to Jenkins itself, and then if in case if you're using Groovy as your multi-branch pipelines, then you would need a scoped component in your Groovy script, wherein you would give your credential ID and the type of secrets and in which variable name you want to map it to. Once you have done that, even if it prints in console, even if your shell script says echo dollar password and the password variable stores your value, then Jenkins, it has its built-in capability to mask that value on your console log. It will not never print that.
Okay. So is it possible to configure communication between two servers so that are having private SS?
Private?
SS.
Yes, sir. Definitely. And even if they are in different AWS accounts and a different VPC, definitely it is a possibility. If in case it is a different VPC, or even if a different account having a different VPC, you could go with the AWS VPC pairing option. With that, you can easily establish connection between two different machines sitting in a different subnet of a different region. You can very easily establish that. If in case it is both the networks are private, we just need to ensure that the inbound rules are open for at least the inside the VPC. Then you should be able, if both the machines are on a private subnet of a VPC, then you should not have a problem talking to each other.
Okay, got it. Can you tell me the scenario to implement the security in Kubernetes?
Give me a scenario of implementing a secret in Kubernetes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, let's say you're making an application wherein you have some sort of OpenAI integration, which would need some API secrets to be added, and those secrets, instead of adding to a config map or an environment variable exposed directly, I would map them in a secret and then mount that's from a secret. That is.
But you
yes.
told if you are doing it in environment variable, it's getting exposed earlier, right?
Inside the pod, yes.
Yeah.
So you don't want to expose it inside the pod?
Yeah.
So you want to use a secret, but you don't want to expose it inside the pod. Okay. So you want to use a secret which should be accessible inside the pod. Okay, so you want it to be scoped or something?
Yeah, we want to be in scoped.
You want it to be scoped?
Yeah.
Scope to a specific pod or a specific name? And what is the scope level?
Yeah, it should be pod specific.
Pod specific, yes. So your secret would be mounted at your deployment level only. Then it should not be accessible by across the pods. It will not be accessible, but your pod specifically should be able to access.
Okay.
Yes.
So have you worked on Ansible?
I've not worked on Ansible.
Okay. No. Okay,
but yes, I'm aware of the core concept of basically automating and using the playbooks. Yes,
I got it.
Aware of the concept, but I have not worked on that.
Sure. Do you know what is Lambda?
Yes, I'm aware of Lambdas.
Can you tell me?
So Lambdas are a technology provided by AWS. Ideally, the core concept sitting behind that is a serverless execution, wherein you upload your code and the code is executed on demand. So your pricing comes down to almost negligible if in case you are starting a new company. Then in that case, it's a perfect fit. Again, there are a couple of restrictions as well. It's not that it's a good fit in all scenarios. Let's say if your execution or the code takes around more than 15 minutes, right? So a Lambda has a cap of 15 minutes. On top of that, if your program also needs a memory more than 10 GBs per instance or per request, then also Lambdas is not a good solution. But in a normal scenario wherein you're fetching some data from your database, doing some computation, basic computation, a simple CRUD application, if you imagine, Lambdas, I think, would be our best solution because the pricing is always in our favor. And something that is rarely used, there are options of cold start, wherein if in case your load time is getting too high, then you could register your Lambda under a cold start, and that would help you reduce your response time. Because if it is starting a new instance every time of your application and then killing it once the request is completed, right? So this is where, and generally where I have used Lambdas is in an API gateway scenario, wherein a user token I used to validate using a AWS Lambda. So every request will have authorization token, right? So verifying a authorization token against the secret, that I used to do at Lambda. So every request before even coming to my server, because we were not a serverless technology based solution, but what I wanted to do is all my payload evaluation and let's say my header evaluation that I want to do, I could do a request interception easily at API gateway, and that's where I was using AWS Lambdas.
Okay. So let's consider a scenario when team is experiencing slow read performance on a RDS database during
on a RDS database. Okay.
During peak hours. So
Okay.
how, if it is asked, like how can you optimize the performance?
And is it just the reading operation or is it write operation as well?
Let's consider only reading.
Okay, let's consider only reading. So then I need to first check if the region and my availability zone where my execution is happening and my database availability zone, is it in the same region, or at least I would prefer keeping both of those items in the same VPC and same availability zone. That would be the first thing that I would check. Second, in case if during my peak load, I would increase my read replicas of my databases so that my performance can be increased. Performance of reading or read operations can be optimized.
Okay.
So that should, I think, ideally solve the problem, because it is only a read replica, so I could downsize it as well. It will not create problems. And I will also have to ensure that no application is directly trying, basically because it is a read replica, so ideally you will not be able to write on that. So that should solve your slowness problem on your read replica. What, if you don't mind, what database do you use from RDS?
So it is Postgres.
Postgres, yes. Yeah, you should be able to do that.
Okay. Let's consider like your AWS bill has increased unexpectedly. Unexpected as increased over past 2 months. So how you do analyze and reduce?
Okay, so first option, if you do not have the visibility enabled already, then you can start with your cost explorer and see where the spikes are, what all services are spiking. Easiest way, look at your last month's invoice, because AWS invoices are extremely detailed. It gives you exactly the value of what network upload or a network download as well has increased. So you will be able to determine what is increasing. Based on that, I will be able to determine what service cost has increased, right? So I will start from there. Then you have resource monitor or resource explorer, either of this service, which will give me a full visibility of the complete ecosystem, irrespective of which region, which availability zone it is running in. It will give me a full picture. And then from there, we will have to dig deeper into it. Like maybe your program, if in case it's not doing a proper heap dump, let's say, or a memory dumping is not happening properly, that means your memory utilization is increased extremely, because lambdas, right? What I think Rishabh was telling me, that you were using lambdas, so your memory utilization would be extremely high. And then I would see, okay, maybe you are downloading a lot of data directly. That would be addition that was extremely expensive. If in case there is a extremely high download content, if in case I could have a direct private link and the data if I can make AWS think that the data is always staying in AWS ecosystem, yes, that will help me reduce my costs. So again, it completely depends on scenario to scenario how we can do the cost optimization part. But yes, this would be my starting point.
Okay. So you have used Git, right? Can you tell me, do you know Git's cherry pick? What is Git's cherry pick?
What was that once again?
Cherry pick in Git.
No, cherry pick I have not come across in Git. I'm generally using fetch, pull, post, push, and yes, that's what is coming in my daily use case. Generally, cherry pick I'm not doing.
Okay.
But I think what it would be required for is, if I remember my Git days when I was working, learning about that. So it would be required to get the partial download, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So do you know horizontals? What is horizontal scaling and vertical scaling?
Yes, sir. Horizontal scaling and vertical scaling, two options of scaling. If in case, so depends again what application I am working on, and then how can I scale that up. If in case my application can support increasing memory in real time, right? Because what generally happens is, let's say if a memory is allocated and hardware you cannot modify, some programming languages does not really support that, then in those cases vertical scaling becomes near to impossible. In those cases I would go with horizontal scaling. Horizontal scaling, if I have to summarize in a nutshell, you just increase the number of instances of your application. That way you increase that is what is horizontal scaling. And in vertical scaling you increase CPU and memory, CPU or memory, whatever is you are falling short of, on the same instance. That is where that will be your vertical scaling.
Got it. Okay.